Krauthammer was on Fox News talking about President Barack Obama's response to the shooting in Chattanooga. He's very upset that President Obama has not preemptively linked the shooter to extreme terrorism. Take a look.
This is, in all probability, an example of radical Islam at work. But the general issue is radical Islam. And unless we have a president who immediately says this is a lone gunman, how does he know? When you say lone gunman, what you're doing subtly or unsubtly is disconnecting the dots. When we had the underwear bomber trying to bring down a plane over Detroit, Obama immediately said that this was an isolated extremist. It wasn't, in fact. It turned out to be connected to al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. So I think it's sort of the 6.5 years of Obama always wanting to err on the side of downplaying the threat. The threat is radical Islam, which he won't say.
Such horseshit. Again, it does not understand the power dynamic. What do you think happens when you say it? That magically ISIS is, oh, he said it. Now, you know what? Let's retreat.
Also,
ISIS is going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe he uttered our name. We got to go.
Like, what is the value to Charles Krauthammer of saying immediately something which you can't possibly know? What is the value?
It's just the fear-mongering that works really, really well on Fox News. There's no question about that. But also, when Obama said that he was a lone gunman, I think he was just trying to let everyone know there was one shooter there. He wasn't trying to make a political point about whether this has anything to do with Muslim extremism.
That's right.
Right? So they're taking the words of Obama and they're twisting it in a way that obviously plays to their ridiculous audience who's obsessed with fear-mongering.
So let me add to that. Local cops said it was a lone gunman. In other words, don't worry, you don't have to panic. There's not 2 or 3 other guys running around Chattanooga shooting at people, right? Second of all, when this happened, within an hour, the FBI came in and called it domestic terrorism. When Dylann Roof happened, they still don't call it terrorism. The FBI refuses to call it terrorism. Now, Dylann Roof had a political manifesto, did it for political reasons, killed civilians. Why isn't it terrorism? Nope. Well, hey, Charles Krauthammer, why are you disconnecting the dots? Let me connect them for you. Dylann Roof, Scott Roeder, the guy who did the shooting at the Sikh temple, the guy who did the shooting at the Jewish Museum, the guy who did the shooting at the Jewish Community Center in Kansas. They were all racist, bigoted right-wingers, okay, who were based in hate groups in America, okay? So let's go bomb them. Oh, hey! Why are you downplaying the threat that we are facing in America? Why are you disconnecting the dots? Why won't you take action to protect American citizens, Charles Krauthammer? Okay, why are you protecting the hate groups? Why are you protecting the anti-Semitic and the anti-black and all the racist groups out there? And then, of course, or perhaps maybe we should do what Fox News does. Not even right-wing, not even hate groups, not even, just all white people. Because Krauthammer said, this is in all probability an example of Islam at work. That's a quote, okay? An example of Islam at work. Now, if I said Dylann Roof is an example of white people at work, what would happen? Everybody go crazy, right? I mean, like, but Cenk, that's so unfair. How can you take one guy, or even all the guys you just listed, who did all the shootings fairly recently, all based in hate groups, right, and connect them to all white people? That's to 250 million Americans who are white? That's outrageous. So what they do is they take this guy who did the shooting here and a couple of others, the Fort Hood shooting, etc. Same, actually less number of people. We've done that story before. There are less Muslim radical shooters in America than right-wing hate radicals that do this. Take those people and then they go, well, it's Islam at work. They connected those guys to 1.6 billion people. So me connecting it to 250 million people is insane and outrageous. Them connecting a couple of guys to 1.6 billion people, they find perfectly normal.
Right, and of course, both are ridiculous.
Of course they are. Of course Dylann Roof doesn't represent all white people. And of course the Muslim shooters here we've had in America don't represent all Muslims. And you fucking morons, that's not being an apologist for all Muslims. And that's certainly not being an apologist for the fucking shooter. We despise the shooter. I did a 15-minute segment yesterday on how somebody's going to have to go to the home of those Marines and tell their kids that their dad is dead, okay? So the shooter is a piece of shit, right, as Dylann Roof is, okay? But that doesn't mean that you get to blame 1.6 billion people and say it's Islam at work. If you do that, And I got bad news for you. I'm not the one with the issue. You are. You're a fucking bigot, okay? And when I say that, they get so angry because they are bigots, because they do want to blame all Muslims, and they think 1.6 billion people. And then they'll say, last thing, they'll say, oh, I didn't say all Muslims. Most Muslims, right? I mean, I'll show you polls. I'll show you polls. Most Muslims, and they'll connect it to this guy. Most Muslims want to kill innocent people who did nothing to them. No, oh, no, but you're out of context. You're a Muslim apologist. So, well, if you're not attacking all Muslims, when I say, hey, it's not all 1.6 billion people, why are you mad at me? It turns out you are attacking all Muslims.
Does Krauthammer and that gang want to return to those days after 9/11? When mosques were attacked, when Sikh men were hunted down and killed because Americans thought they were Muslims? You know, is that the sort of hysteria that he'd like back, that would be somehow satiated by a president who would say, radical Islam is behind this, or better yet, Islam is behind this. This is Islam at work, in the words of Krauthammer. What do they want? What is the value? What would make them feel good? What would satisfy that sort of thirst for blood that they have right now?
Well, the problem with this guy is he's supposed to be, giving analysis, but it's just filling airtime because he's.
Well, don't knock that.
Well, no, but I'm saying, he's not analyzing. If he had said, listen, if he had said, we don't know who's behind this yet, yeah. But my estimation is it is probably linked to, if he said it like that, then you're sitting at home and still people watching on Fox are probably still going to conclude that this guy is
right. But we wouldn't be airing this clip.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But you know what I'm saying? But he's going straight up and going like, no, Obama's wrong on the underwear bomber and he's wrong on this guy, and all Obama is saying is, yo. Let's do our investigation and figure out who this guy was. For all we know, this guy was in his early 20s. He could have been bipolar. He could have been depressed. He could have psychological problems. He did have psychological. Right. If you take the gun and go kill these people, you got some level of psychological problems.
I mean, back in the old days, when there were journalistic ethics that were being followed on television or in print media, it would be considered highly unethical to jump to conclusions prior to having the information to the story. It's called speculation, right? And if you ever speculate about anything, you should be very clear that you're speculating. But in this case, he's already concluded that this is a Muslim extremist, right?
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't mind that. Like, if they just kept it at extremist or radical, yeah, I think they have an overwhelming chance of being right? Right? And I said the same thing yesterday on this show. So if you want to say Dylan Roof was a right-wing radical, and you want to say Muhammad Youssef Abdulazeez is a Muslim radical, I totally agree with you. Totally. And it might be and then they'll say, oh, hey, why are you trying to discount the factor of religion? But I'm not. So for James Holmes does the shooting for crazy reasons plus whatever was in his head, right? Having nothing to do, we presume, with hate groups or religion, right? Mm-hmm. Dylan Roof does it because he's crazy plus he belongs to hate groups and hates black people. Abdulazeez does the shooting because he's crazy and he got it in his head of religion. Oh my God, I got to go fight the infidels. Now, based on his blog and what we know so far, right? So, okay, yes, you're right. They're all crazy, and they all they do it for some particular reason. But then to say, and this gets to Ben's point, but so, okay, nobody's denying that religion had a role in what he did, right? But so why are you so eager to connect it to their religion and then by association blame the whole religion? Like, there's a thirst to do that. Yeah. And so when you look into that thirst as to why you want to do that, the reason is so we can all turn around here in the West and feel really great about bombing Muslims.
That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right.
That it has a policy motive. The people doing it might not even be aware of it, right? Yeah. But the reality is then you get to say, we have good intent, but when we're bombing them, I mean, we had to. They're the Muslims. Yeah. You know how the Muslims are, right? Mm-hmm. And so when we do the bombings, whether it's in Iraq, it's in Syria, it's in Yemen, it's in Gaza, wherever it might be, Can you really blame us? You know how they are.
And that gets to the other point about that Fox makes all the time about where are the Muslims condemning this attack, even though CARE, the largest Muslim organization, civil rights organization in this country, condemned it within 19 seconds after it was over yesterday in unequivocal terms. But they want to be able to not just say, yeah, we're going to feel comfortable bombing Muslims, and then if you make the secondary point, we're going to kill a lot of innocent Muslims, you're like, okay, yeah, you're right, they're innocent, they didn't do it. But they harbor those people. They don't really take a stand against those people.
Well, we need a boogeyman, and that's like after the Soviet Union fell, the Muslims became the boogeyman, and now so every time something happens like this, they instantly go to this crazy conspiracy of the Muslims are coming to get us. They're coming with their Sharia laws. They don't even educate themselves on the difference between Shiite and Sunni. The Shiites and Sunnis are fighting each other, but they don't care. You know, it's the Muslims are all supporting terrorism. Let's go get them. Anytime there's an issue, as an Iranian American, when the whole deal was just done, the amount of people that were telling me how afraid they are that Iran is now going to expand its terrorism because of the deal. And I was just, I had to talk people down. I had to be like, relax, like let's just relax for a second, breathe for a second. You know, there's other state sponsors of terrorism. There's a lot of other things going on. We do terroristic acts in some of these countries. So we have such a one-directional view going, and such little knowledge of the nuances out there. And we need the boogeyman, and that's the Muslims.